Okay, hello everybody, and thank you for tuning in once again to the Black Box Podcast, BBOR Black Box Online Radio. It's been a while since the last upload. I was out of the country for a while. I was in China, actually, but now getting back in the swing of things, and I hope slowly over the next few weeks there will be a few more uploads coming. And I've received a lot of the comments on some of the other uploads while I was out of the country, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who has left a comment, no matter what it was. Any feedback at all is welcome. And just thank you for sharing your ideas and your feelings and your thoughts, and just any sort of, response at all, I feel is just welcome because it expands the discussion. And that is sort of what these things that we do on YouTube are all about. They're all about expanding the discussion. So I was feeling pretty good about that. But now moving on to the topic of today. We're going to be looking at the Judith Regan interview with O.J. Simpson that was conducted about 10, 12 years ago, but Fox has just put it out now, and I believe the exact date that it aired was March 11th, 2018. Even has the hashtag, Did O.J. Confess? Yeah, so this upload is pretty much going to be sort of a review and some kind of notes on the O.J. Simpson interview with Judith Regan. I'm pretty sure if you've clicked on this thing in the far corner of YouTube, you've probably already seen the interview or you've followed the O.J. Simpson case a lot. So we don't need to go over too much of the background information. Well, the first thing that I would say is I really think that this would bring to light a lot of the details that a lot of people have been wondering. They've been wondering sort of, a first-person narrative of O.J. Simpson, kind of describing what would happen on the night of the murders that killed Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. And it definitely provides a lot of detail and filling in the gaps to people who endorse the theory that O.J. was the murderer. But you know what we really have to be realists about is there are so many people who think that he is innocent. There's so many people who think that he's connected, but not actually the person who did the killings. And I think it's very interesting that they didn't promote or kind of challenge him at all with any sort of alternative theories. They were really only pushing one angle. But maybe in their defense, he did do that interview because he was promoting the book, If I Did It. And that was a very big story about 12 years ago, that O.J. Simpson was coming out with this book called, If I Did It, Here's How It Happened. And it was kind of just a bizarre thing. That was really sort of the feeling that everybody I was talking to about it at the time just had. We're like, what? Why would he do that? Well, one reason is he could have done it to make money, but one key thing that was left out in the interview is the Goldman family actually obtained all the rights to that book because in the civil trial, O.J. was found liable for the deaths of Ron and Nicole, and he had to pay $33 million, right? Everybody knows that, right? But because he wasn't paying, in short, and that famous line referring to the Goldmans as the gold diggers, well, the Goldman family obtained the rights to the book, and they obtained, all the royalties to that book, If I Did It. And don't misunderstand me. I totally agree with that. I don't want any sort of, discrepancy. I agree with that. They probably should have, someone's writing a book about killing your son, here's how I would have killed your son. Yeah, go for it. Why not? But anyway, one of the big things that I felt they did not mention in this interview was this is fictional. And this book did not pretend to be anything other than fiction at the time. And really, in the sort of, cutaways and retrospect glances, they didn't. They sort of make this look like that this is sort of a history book, but no, this book was purely fiction. And at the time, 12 years ago, it was promoted as something fictional. For example, one of the publishers went straight on television and said, this is a novel. It was not written by O.J. Simpson. It was written by an author named Pablo Flevges. I hope I'm saying his name right, Falvjes. And this man, Pablo, was the actual writer of the book. They put O.J.'s name on it. It was ghost written. but he conducted many interviews with O.J. Simpson, and he openly said he believes O.J. is guilty and this is what happened. But of course, to promote it, they had to make it sound like O.J. wrote the whole thing. So, absolutely no mention of the novelized ghostwriter, whatever. But I mean, that's just television, that's just sensationalism, and that's just trying to get people's attention. I don't think there would have been that much buzz around this if they had mentioned that it was a novel. Okay, so the other biggest thing is with the Judith Regan interview. Now we're getting into more of the true crime side. The biggest thing with this one, I would say, is there's this talk of a person named Charlie. You know, O.J. Simpson has an accomplice on the night of the murder, and his name is Charlie. But I was very disappointed that Judith Regan didn't press him for more information about, well, who is Charlie? You know, it's like a friend that he knew for a little while. It's like, come on, that's all you're going to say? You had an accomplice on the night of the murders, and you're not going to say anything else about that? It's just a friend you've known for a while? I wanted to see more questions from her. You know, where's he from? How did you meet him? What does he look like? You know, it's like, where does he live? And it's actually very interesting that OJ was saying that it was Charlie who took the knife out of the Bronco. He always carried a knife for self-defense because it was more difficult to transport guns. You know, like you could get into some trouble for that. But you can carry a knife, no problem. And it was Charlie that took the knife out of the truck, and out of the Bronco, rather, and that was the reason why the knife got involved in the altercation with Ron and Nicole. But once again, it was very surprising that Judith Regan did not push him for more details on who Charlie was, because this would mean like, if this were true, somebody has gotten away with being an accessory to murder, and that's kind of a serious crime, wouldn't you say? Someone has been a major accomplice to one of the largest murder trials in the history of humanity, and they just got away, and you, the interviewer, Judith Regan, don't want to push him any further on that, to reveal anything on television. I don't know. I thought that was very kind of, maybe the word is sloppy, or maybe just not very thorough. And they really seem to sort of play off the larger things that are probably easier to sell to the audience, which are just, you know, he's a monster, he had an anger problem, he had a temper problem, he was abusive, and this is one of the things that I think is very easy to sell. They're very easy to just sort of, you know, have the general public comprehend this overall general sentiment that, you know, he's an abusive man, he was, you know, a monster, if you want to use those words. I mean, that's sort of the image that they want to present, and one of the biggest problems with that is, you know, they're only trying to go from one side. And now, this is going to sound kind of weird, but even in another upload on this channel, I mentioned something about how you can hear O.J. Simpson's voice in Nicole Brown's 911 call. She calls 911 at one time, you know, because he's breaking into her house, and she says, he's coming after me, he's going to assault me. And for the first time, I've heard his side of the story on that. And he's just saying, no, I wasn't going there to assault her. I was going to her house because I wanted to confront her about her bringing her drug friends over around my kids. And he's like, any man would have been angry about that. And when you hear what he was saying in the 911 call, I mean, it sort of seems like that would support it. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a saint. I think he's a very, very kind of despicable human being. But it's sort of like they really try to not really give the most balanced presentation. And I don't know, that's just a weird feeling, that it was almost like it's nice to hear two sides of the story. And one of the reasons I'm bringing this up is a lot of the alternative theories that have been going around on the internet have been Nicole and Ron were targeted because of connections to someone in the drug underworld. We're talking about ties to, you know, some high-level drug dealer. And this is what OJ is talking about. He's saying that, Nicole, yes, was involved with people, who were a step below drug lords pretty much. And there are a lot of theories about this online, and we can't really explain the vast, theory in any small amount of time. But once again, I think it's very strange that they did not, explore any of this at all. It's like you have the chance to put out a sort of documentary style presentation nationwide, and, they're not even going to mention some sort of, connection like that. I guess Fox is probably just trying to water things down and to give sort of a mainstream presentation. But I will say the largest theories that people have been talking to me about have been that firstly, Jason Simpson, that he was involved with the murder, and I did one upload on him. And the second largest one that seems to come up is that Nicole and Ron, either one of them, had a connection, again, to the drug cartel, for lack of a better word. And that sort of kicked something off. And, there are just sort of like things, like someone mentioned the Armenian mafia once, about that they were targeting Ron and Nicole. And, it's like, if they're going to try and have a balanced discussion, or they're going to try to have something that is not one-sided, they probably should have at least discussed an alternative theory. It doesn't mean they have to mention Jason Simpson. That's been kicked around enough, but, like, should they have at least mentioned something? Do I think that O.J. Simpson confessed to the murder? I would say that it's very, very likely. I mean, well, firstly, I would like to reiterate, I think his initial intention with this interview, which was done 12 years ago, was to make a profit, to make money. I mean, I don't know why else you would, and the only other reason I would say he might be doing this, if he were, innocent of the murders and he were still doing this, would be to sort of get notoriety, almost sort of the power and manipulation angle, because people are very big on that. People are very big on being able to manipulate public perception, getting people to think in different ways. A lot of people really enjoy that. That's why there are so many hoaxes on the internet, because people just, want to manipulate the public perception, and they view that as their own sort of power. We're talking about all the, the fake videos like the Flat Earth Society, and people who have faked their own UFO videos like Billy Meyer. All of these things, like, they aren't always making a profit off of those. They're just enjoying the sort of notoriety that comes along with it. I will say, though, for a long time, I was a believer in some of the alternative theories related to O.J. Simpson, and all I can say coming away from this last interview is that it's really very likely that someone else was involved with this murder. Yes, I do think O.J. was there, and I can even say that I believe that he was definitely involved with this murder, but it seems like he had an accomplice. It seems like he had someone else working with him. It seems like he had someone else initially driving the Bronco. And someone really, really got away. People think that OJ got off. I mean, it's just like, he did do quite a few years in prison, but we're talking somebody probably did 0 jail time, probably did not have their life much affected at all. And that's kind of crazy. And it's really kind of crazy that nobody investigated more. And I will say that that's the single biggest thing. Why wasn't there more investigation? Anyway, what do you think? Did OJ confess to the murder? Was OJ Simpson the murderer that night, or is he innocent? Tell me any alternative theory you'd like to share. I want to hear your thoughts. Thank you for tuning into this very long-winded, rambling episode of the Black Box Podcast. I'll talk to you guys later.